I am John Robinson, I'm 45, I'm from a small little town called Connors-Key, which is on the North Wales border to Chester. Now I'm sure all of you at some time in your life have tried your hand at DIY. I certainly have. And a few years ago in the summer, my wife actually said to me, I can have a free rein at doing the back garden as it started getting a little bit dilapidated. Well, I was in my elements. I laid a few paving slabs, what I classed as a patio, put some slabs down the centre of the grass and then a patio at the end. So I left myself with two pieces of turf either side. I dug it all up, rolled it all out, got my tape measure out, measured down the length and the width of both sides, and then converted it from inches into feet and into square feet. I went to the local turf, Fraser Turf I think it was called, and give them these measurements. And they said to me, there's 3 types of turf, which one do you want? Which threw me a little bit because I thought grass was grass. First they said, well, there's just your everyday run-of-the-mill turf, which was so much per square metre. The second was what they classed as good turf, at so much per metre. And the third was what they classed as Wembley turf. Well, that was for me, had to be the best. So I ordered it and we paid for it and he said he'll deliver it the following morning. The following morning they turned up with a low loader. I was in the back garden getting the final preparations ready and my wife come running through and she said, I think you've got a lot of turf too much. And I said, why? She said, I've just asked the driver, you're going to be really busy today with all that. And he said, no, my love, it's all here and then I finish. I said, don't worry. I said, they only come little rolls. I got the first roll, carted it through the house, unrolled it in the back garden. It went from top to virtually the end. And I thought, oh, God. I used 23 rolls of turf. I ordered 87. Obviously, I had far too much over. Well, I couldn't get rid of this stuff for love nor money. But good comes out of bad, I suppose, and I'm now the honorary member of the cricket club in Connors-Key. Like the others, I joined the army at 16. I couldn't wait. I wanted to follow my brother's footsteps who joined the year before. And I was sick to death of him sending postcards home from different places in the world to my mum and dad. So at 16, I signed up, and I signed up to join the Parachute Regiment. And even to this day now, I look back and think, why? I'm absolutely petrified of heights even now. But I went through the vigorous training and everything else, and obviously it was quite, you had to be quite fit to be a paratrooper. And I was only 16, I was young, I was fit. And I thought this is going to be easy, this is great. Until it suddenly dawned on me that I had to start jumping out of planes. Now, who in the right mind jumps out of a perfectly good aircraft with a hanky over the head? Nobody. The first parachute jump we have to do is from the balloon, they call it a balloon. It's like an inflatable plane held up by a coil wire. And there's 4 of you in a basket, and you float up to 800 feet. And the parachute jump instructor's at the front, and he calls the first person forward, and so on and so forth. I was number 3. So when it was my turn, I had white knuckles going around this basket until I got to the front, and he said to you, put your arms over your reserve. So I put my right arm over. So he said, put your left arm over as well. So I put my right arm back onto the cage and put my left arm over. So in the end, it was just a question. I just looked out and I thought, what am I doing? Just looking down to absolutely nothing, little matchbox cars, and I thought, no. But I thought, well, it's either this or you're getting kicked out, son. So it was just a question of 2 hands over in Geronimo. I absolutely hated it. You had the sensation of falling 200 feet before your parachute deploys. It only gives you 600 foot left. It doesn't give you a lot of time to think if there's any mistakes. I absolutely despised it, and I thought, this isn't going to be for me. But I persevered and persevered because I didn't want to be a failure. So from there, as I say, we started jumping out of Hercules planes, which was brilliant then because you're going sideways with the slipstream, so you didn't have the sensation of falling. And then from helicopters, it was just like jumping out of a huge slide. I loved it. I did 12 good years. I went to Kenya, Belize, Oman, 4 tours on Northern Ireland. Some really, really good times. And as I say, it got to the point then I thought, right, I've done 12 years. I'll now leave and I'll join the police force, which I did. So I moved from Aldershot down south and I moved up to Connors-Key in North Wales. I bought a house. I had about 3 months to spare before I joined the police force. So I did little jobs here and there, and then unfortunately then I got a letter from North Wales Police to say that they wasn't recruiting. So to join another constabulary. So obviously I tried the Cheshire Constabulary, they wasn't recruiting, and so on and so forth. The only police force that was recruiting was the Metropolitan Police, which was down in London, which is all the way back down south again. And I thought, well, I've just bought a house, I've just settled down, so I never pursued a career in the police. So I went from job to job, from couriering to security, like I think a lot of ex-services do. I couldn't settle, I couldn't get into it. And then eventually I became a manager of a pharmaceutical company, which I loved. I had my own little office, my leather chair, people respected me. I was a hired and fired, they had no choice. But I think my main ambition was to become a licensee. I'd grown up in pubs and clubs that my mum and dad had owned. So myself and my wife decided, right, we'll buy a pub. A little bit like that Victor Kayam did with the Razor. He bought the company, I bought a pub because I love beer. Because of that reason, it didn't really work 3 years into it, the way the breweries are, with the rent and one thing and another. But obviously, I liked the ale as well, so what we were making was I was spending. So we called it a day, and then I joined a company that worked for the Shot and Steel Works, packing coils for export. And then in January of 2008, I sustained a heart attack where I was in the Countess of Chester Hospital. A week or so later, I was discharged, and I was signed on the sick until the end of March. And then a week after I was discharged, I noticed that my left eye started, well, it wasn't right. It started going funny. I spoke to the doctor, they sent me back. I had scans, I had tests, and they confirmed that I had a thing called age-related macular degeneration. It threw me a little bit, but then the following morning, I noted my right eye had gone the same. Highly unlikely, they said, but come back in, we'll carry out the scans and tests again. They then confirmed that it had spread to my right eye, and basically said, you'll go blind, but not as you know it, which made absolutely no sense to me. We come home and life was very, very difficult. I'd lost my dad with a massive heart attack in January of 2000. And I was so down and so depressed, the world had just fell apart for me. And looking back selfishly now, I wished then that heart attack took me like it took my father. That the house would have been paid for, my wife would have been secure, and I wouldn't have had the prospect of, from 42, living in the dark. I just turned myself away from everybody. I couldn't accept what had happened. I felt some sort of failure. It's hard to explain. And then my mother mentioned about St Dunstan's, which at the time I'd never heard of, even though I'd done 12 years in the army. So she did all the running around, ringing up, phoning up, and I was invited down to Harcourt Street in London. I had all my tests and scans and everything there, and at the time I didn't actually fit the criteria because my eyesight wasn't as bad as it should be. But with it being a degenerative disease, they knew, as long as I knew, that it would get worse in time. So the following year, they called me back down, they did all the scans and everything again, and then the following day I got a phone call from a lovely gentleman called David Havisham, who said, congratulations, John, you're now with St Dunstan. I put the phone down, it was yes! But what does that mean? I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what they could do for me, I certainly didn't know what I could do for them. Then I was invited to go to Ovendene in Brighton for St Dunstan's. I was very, very sceptical. I didn't know what to expect. But we went, and my wife came with me, and the first person I met was this man-mountain of a man, 6'5", ex-marine, ex-policeman, who showed us to our room, showed me little things like how the showers work, and, you know, took me around, showed me the whole building. Brilliant. Until 2 days later when he does his talk, and then that's when we discovered that he was totally blind. Well, that was a big, big inspiration to me, thinking, well, if this man can do that, what's wrong with me? Get yourself up, dust yourself down, and you carry on. Because if people like that can do it, then there's no excuse in the world that nobody else can do it. He was brilliant, and he inspired me to the degree that I've been to Sheffield, to St Dunstan's, about 7 or 8 times now. They've taught me with IT, which I could never use a computer beforehand. I've passed all my CLATE exams with a view to passing my ITQ. St Dunstan's has given me everything. They've took me back out my shell, they've given me my self-esteem, they've certainly given me my confidence back, and definitely they've given me my independence back. I can't thank them enough. Where does that leave me now? Well, I'll tell you where it leaves me now. 2 weeks ago, I filled an application form in online to apply for a job as rehabilitation and training support worker at St Dunstan's in Llandudno here, which is exactly the same job as what big 6'5" Martin Shale does down in Ovendene. If I was fortunate enough to get the position and I achieved only a quarter of what Martin can do, then I'll be a happy man. If for some reason I don't get that position, what I will say to St Dunstan's is, for God's sake, don't give me the DIY job here, because it won't work. Thank you all very much for coming, and thanks very much for listening to my story. Thank you.